All right, let's get right into it. We're going back to 1976, smack in the middle of one of the tensest times of the Cold War. And we're going to a tiny strip of land between North and South Korea, where a single tree became the center of an international crisis that almost, and I mean almost, led to a full-blown war.
I know what you're thinking, right? It sounds completely absurd. How does some basic tree trimming escalate into an international incident with nuclear-capable bombers on standby? Well, believe it or not, that's exactly what happened, and it's what we're going to break down right now.
And this is where it all kicked off. This photo literally captures the moment the chaos erupted. You're looking at what was supposed to be a routine work detail just completely descending into absolute mayhem. This wasn't a firefight with guns. This was a brutal ambush with axes and clubs in the one place violence like this was never supposed to happen.
So to really get a handle on that violence, we have to back up and look at where this whole thing started. And believe it or not, it all begins with a really simple problem. A tree was in the way.
And here it is. Meet the main character of our story, a 98-foot-tall poplar tree. Now, this wasn't just any old tree. Its location made it a massive strategic problem for the United Nations command forces that were watching over the area.
You see, it's all about location, location, location. The tree was standing right in the middle of the Joint Security Area, the JSA, and it was blocking the view between two critical observation posts. And in a place as tense as the DMZ, where every single movement is watched, not being able to see what's happening can get you killed.
But here's the twist. For the North Koreans, this tree meant something much, much more. They claimed it was planted by their founder, the great leader Kim Il-sung himself. So you have this clash, right? For the UN, trimming the tree was just a practical necessity, but for North Korea, it was a deep, personal insult to their nation. The stakes just got incredibly high.
Okay, so now let's get to that fateful day, August 18th, 1976, and see exactly how all this simmering tension just exploded into unspeakable violence.
And things escalated scarily fast. I mean, look at this timeline. A UN work party shows up for a routine trim. A North Korean officer, Lieutenant Pak Chol, shows up and tells them to stop. The American commander, Captain Bonifas, basically tells them to get lost. And that's when Pak gives the absolutely bone-chilling order, kill the bastards. In less than a minute, the whole scene just descends into a bloody, chaotic mess.
And the human cost of that 30-second frenzy was just horrific. Captain Arthur Bonifas, the commander on site, was beaten to death right there. First Lieutenant Mark Barrett was attacked with an axe and died on his way to the hospital. And pretty much every other UN guard there was injured.
Now, in the aftermath, you get this classic Cold War situation. Two completely different versions of reality emerge almost instantly. For the UN command, it was crystal clear. This was a barbaric, unprovoked murder. But North Korea, they immediately started telling the world that their guards were the victims, who were just defending themselves from aggressive Americans.
And they didn't waste a second. The propaganda war was on. Just hours after the attack, North Korea was already presenting their version of the story to the rest of the world. And you know what? It actually worked. They got a resolution passed that condemned the United States, basically winning the first round in the court of global opinion.
So, let's just recap. You've got 2 American officers dead, and a chunk of the world is already blaming the US for it. The White House had to respond, and respond forcefully. The entire world was holding its breath because the Korean peninsula was teetering right on the edge of another massive war. And the American response was serious. We're talking DEFCON 3. To put that in perspective, that's the same alert level they hit during the Cuban Missile Crisis. So yeah, this was huge. President Gerald Ford and his team knew that whatever they did next could either calm things down or ignite the entire region.
The plan they came up with was given a name straight out of American folklore, a name that perfectly captured the mission's goal. Operation Paul Bunyan.
So the new mission? It wasn't about trimming the tree anymore. No, the plan now was to cut the whole damn thing down. But this wasn't about landscaping. This was a message. It was designed to be such an undeniable, overwhelming show of force that it would intimidate North Korea into backing down without a single shot being fired.
And when I say overwhelming, I mean it. Just look at this list. Over 800 troops on the ground. 27 helicopters buzzing in the air. You've got nuclear-capable B-52 bombers flying high overhead, escorted by fighter jets. And if that wasn't enough, the aircraft carrier USS Midway was parked just offshore. All of this to cut down one tree. So 3 days after the murders, a convoy rolls back into the JSA, and you get this just surreal scene. A handful of Army engineers walking up to the tree with regular old chainsaws, while the entire terrifying might of the U.S. military is watching over them from the land, the sea, and the sky.
The North Koreans definitely responded. They rushed a couple hundred soldiers to the spot, they started setting up machine guns, and then they did nothing. Faced with that insane level of force, they just stood there and watched, in total silence.
42. That's how many minutes it took. 42 minutes for the engineers to chop down the tree. Then everybody packed up and left. Operation over. The message had been sent, loud and clear.
And how do we know the message was received? Well, we have this quote from an American intelligence analyst who was literally listening in on the North Korean military radio traffic. He said the sheer scale of it all just blew their fucking minds. It was so massive, so over the top, it just completely stunned them into submission.
So, the tree was gone. War had been avoided. But the incident totally changed the rules of engagement on the world's most dangerous border. It led to a new and very, very uneasy peace.
What happened next was, well, it was genuinely historic. A message came through from Kim Il-sung himself. It said it was regretful that an incident occurred. Now, it wasn't exactly a full apology, but this was unprecedented. It was the first time since the Korean War ended in 1953 that North Korea had ever accepted even a tiny bit of responsibility for violence at the DMZ.
For more than 10 years after the incident, the stump of that poplar tree was left right where it was as a pretty stark reminder of what happened. Then, in 1987, they finally removed it and put up a stone monument, the one you see here, to honor Captain Bonifas and First Lieutenant Barrett.
And that really leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? Was this a pre-planned attack by North Korea? A calculated test of American resolve? Or was it just a powder keg moment that, thanks to pride and miscalculation, spun tragically and violently out of control? It's a question historians are still debating. What do you think?